walk in really not caring about themselves, but having them full of themselves by the time they walk out the door. Listen, we gotta force our government to make corrections. This institution was built with greed in mind and enslaving people in mind. It's time to change not only the thinking that went into building this industrial prison complex, but also it's time to really make changes. The hell with a conversation. I'm tired of conversations. I'm tired of them tricking us into conversation. It's time for action. It's time for action. That starts with your vote. Your voting solves a lot of the problems that you suffer from. Don't complain about nothing if you're not voting. Get registered to vote. It's people out here today that will help you get registered to vote. Get involved. When they can't hide anything from the public, they can't do the dirt. Shine a light on it. Get in front of a camera. Get off of your social media and go to the town hall. Go down there in their face. Make them hear you. And if they don't do what their job requires for them to do, which is what we want them to do, get their ass out of there. Put your aunties in there. Put your uncles in there. Put your babies in there. Make them run for office. Make them be the leaders in the community. Because that's what we need, people that's going to come in and be fair and just. I don't want nobody to look out for me. I don't want no favors or none of that. Just do the damn right thing.
Hey, free Wayne Duff. Free Wayne Duff. Come on, y'all. Free your loved one. That's what we here for. Let's get hyped, y'all. Let's get hyped, y'all. What we out here for? The governor should hear us. The governor should hear us. Second look legislation saves lives. Second look legislation build communities. Come on, y'all. Come on. We here. Bro said that we gotta do this together. We cannot be playing. We are a unit. We gonna move as a unit. Let's use social media. Let's be in tune with each other. Let's control the vote. Let's do it. We ain't gonna talk about it no more. This is our first step together. So we want all y'all show action. Second look legislation. National organization. Second look legislation.
You don't want it tomorrow. You don't want it next week. Next month, you want it now. We have their voices. They have voices through us. We have voices. We are their voices. They have voices. Get out and vote. No hard you, buddy. I don't care how you get there. Get out and vote. Cool. Get out and vote. Don't think that we don't have voices because our loved ones do. Through us. Get out and vote. Our loved ones have voices through us. They might be locked up, but we're not locked up. They might not have money, we're not either, but we have power through our voices. Get out and vote. Don't let them try to stop you from voting. I don't care how hard they make it, you get out and you vote. Carpool with somebody. Go pick up somebody. Register to vote. They're banking on you not voting. They're trying to scare you not to. But if they had scared our ancestors, where would we be? This is just another form of slavery. They're giving us our loved ones all of these long sentences. Michigan is the only one that does that. The only one we voted your behinds in, we'll vote you out. Vote out. Vote out. They got all this faulty information that they're putting on our loved ones. Vote them out. They're not doing anything as far as ballistic and anything else. Vote them out. They're bringing in faulty guns and everything else, putting it on our loved ones. Vote them out. We have a voice. They might not, but we have a voice. And most of all, we have God. We got God on our side. They've been trying to hold us down, knock us down, put us away for years. Thank God. Thank God.
Hey, free my son to me, bro. They allowed that. Free my son. Free everybody else. I'm not just here for the black, the brown. I'm here for the poor whites too. Because if you don't have money, you don't mean anything to them. But we have a voice. Money didn't get them our vote. We got our vote by protesting, marching, and lifting up our voice. Vote. Get out and vote. Who cares about gerrymandering or whatever they're doing? Get out and vote. Any kind of way you can, get out and vote. They offer free rides to vote. Take it.
That's right, Mom.
Take it.
Support.
Get out. Woo!
Free the innocent. Free the innocent. Free the innocent. Free the medically frail. Free the over sentence. All right. We all here. We all here. So my name is Kenneth Nixon. I served 15 years and 9 months for a crime that I didn't commit. I stand up here on behalf of the National Organization of Exonerees. I share this stage with quite a few very prominent people in this community. We've got prosecutors, we've got the NAACP, we've got Nation Outside, we've got quite a few prominent groups up here that are all on the same side. My brothers led me into my speech with get out and vote. Didn't nobody have to tell me to vote. They didn't have to ask me to vote. I went this morning and voted. Check my Facebook, the picture is there. Proof. Because I didn't need anybody to usher me. I made it happen. Because I understood the importance of that, right? I'm 35 years old, that's the first time I ever voted. I spent my entire adulthood incarcerated for a crime that I didn't commit. And one of the biggest lessons I learned was the power of that vote. It took me years to understand how significant and important that was. But when I finally figured it out, I went down there. First opportunity I got. Thank you. It was important to me because I speak to you today on behalf of a whole lot of friends that are still incarcerated. A whole lot of people that are missing out on a meaningful portion of their lives because of injustice. And that injustice starts with the people that are making the decisions. The people that are making some of these decisions don't reflect what we look like in society. And I don't mean just because they're black. That part doesn't matter. I want to know what's going on up here. What do you feel when it comes to these questions? What does criminal justice reform look like to you? Because I know what it looks like to me. And it damn sure don't mean 15 years and 9 months. It damn sure don't mean his 19 years or his 26 or his 15. That ain't what justice looks like. And we've met a lot of people throughout our incarceration with more time than us. That's a sad reality of what some people believe justice looks like. There's no fairness in injustice, none whatsoever. We've got to make change. And that change starts in the voting booth somewhere. We've got to make change. It takes fearlessness and advocacy and people coming together and standing as one. We can't be denied when we stand together.
No, that's right.
They can't ignore us when there's this many of us speaking at the same time.
Yeah, that's it.
This is important. It's beyond important because the majority of the people out here have someone that's within an institution somewhere. We speak on behalf of a whole lot of people. A whole lot of people that the justice system have denied their voice. But together we can't be denied. National Organization of Exonerees.
Free them.
What?
Welcome home, National Organization of Exonerees!
Hello, everybody. It's good to see y'all, all the beautiful men and women. I spent 15 and a half years for a crime I didn't commit. And it was all because of broken justice system. And let me tell you, looking at the faces and the people that's behind bars that are innocent still while locked up, and they need us. They need us. They need our voices. We're the only ones that has the ability to make change. They say, in order to change, you have to demand it. You can't just speak it, demand it. And if you can't get it in demand, you take action. And that's what we have to do. We have to continue to act to make this change for the better of all of us, because I felt like I was put in a box. Silence. No one could hear me. Sat in front of the courthouse while all the judges, all the prosecutors walked, and nobody heard my cry. Nobody heard me. It's just the blessings of God. That's all it is. The rain is just the best blessings of God. And I thank God, first and foremost, again, for helping me, for bringing you all out here today. I didn't have a prepared speech, but I just wanted to get across that it takes action. It takes us this day to make a statement to those who are in authority over us to make this change for the better. You know, because too long we went with their program and it didn't work, and it doesn't work. And I'm proving evidence, and these brothers here are evidence to that. That something has to change, something has to be fixed, and it needs to be. And this is justice system here in Michigan. All right, thank you.
Another round of applause to the National Organization of Exonerees, free the innocent, free the medically frail, free the oversentenced, second look legislation, free the juvenile lifers that are still incarcerated. At this time, I'd like to bring to this mic, we heard from the brother earlier recording Elijah X. Now I want to bring the brother's son up. Please give a round of applause to William Hawkins.
Thomas, man, get up there, man. I know some of the brothers, man, try to get you up there.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Where is he?
I need to holler at Larry.
Oh, glory to God. Listen,
Larry
little
don't
rain
know
ain't gonna
I'm
stop us, right? Come on, get louder than that. A little rain ain't gonna stop us, right? There we go. There we go. First thing first, I want you guys just to look around for a little bit. Just look around. This is support right
Larry.
here. This is what it looks like when you have everybody coming together for one common cause.
Thomas, free me, man. Free me.
You know, and I want to talk about change for a brief moment. I'm the son of Elijah X. My name is William Hawkins. I'm super privileged and excited to be here.
I've been letting everybody know.
I wrote a couple
Everybody's saying
things
they're
down.
gonna
I didn't want to
everybody's
miss
saying they're gonna
anything, so I
get me
wrote
up
a few
there.
things down. You guys just bear with me. I'll go ahead and I'll get through. First, I wanted to talk about the definition of change, like literally change. So you have change. Replace something with something else, especially something of the same kind that is newer or better. Substitute one thing for another. Now, my father's been in prison for roughly around 33, 34 years. So I want to talk about some things that's changed over those 34 years. Some things may be ridiculous, but just bear with me. Blockbuster went out of business. That's changed in 34 years. Now we have Netflix and chill. Okay, now bear with me. Bear with me. Cars went to smart cars because I could hook my phone up to it. Now they drive themselves. This is the progress we made in 34 years. We went from desktops to now all of a sudden we have smartphones, which is a little secret for everybody. A few people in the crowd, we just call them phones these days. That's all, it's just phones. And then the internet percentage literally went from 0.5% to 65% worldwide. Now we're talking about some changes. I want to talk about some things that haven't changed. Take a brief moment and think about it. We're still fighting the same fight. The justice system hasn't changed. I mean, we from having to drive the cars to cars driving themselves, but we're still in the same predicament when it comes to our justice system. Can I get a hallelujah if that's just a shame? That's a shame. That's a shame. And so I want to speak about some things. Of course, the 13th Amendment. Let me go ahead and quote it for you guys. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime, whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist with the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Now, that was a loophole for slavery. You know, we had a lot going on in 2020, 2021, COVID. We lost people. We lost people out here. We lost people in there. But I just want people just to look around again for a brief moment. When we talk about slavery, when we talk about the 13th Amendment, it has no bias, just like COVID had no bias. Just like cancer had no bias. Look around. Men, women. I mean, you have all different ethnicities and races, religions are literally going through the same thing. We're all suffering the pain, and that's why we're here today. So again, I'll talk about my father, because 34 years is a long time. I'm 33 years old. 34 years is a very long time, and I thought I lived a life where I actually learned a lot, but to spend 34 years in prison is heartbreaking. But let me tell you what you do with that heartbreak. You go ahead and you break it down, and you get intelligent, you get smarter, you get wiser, you fight against it. And the changes he's made, not only in his life, but in the lives of others, is priceless and countless. But I'm not here just to speak about him today. I'm here to speak about all lifers. I'm here to speak about all prisoners, all injustice. That's what I'm here to speak about today. And I want to talk about juvenile lifers. I want to talk about just actual lifers. And now we have a new term called virtual. We're not talking about virtual reality. We talk about virtual lifers. You're serving 50 years plus. And that's what we're going through. And so I'm looking at a few different things. We have roughly around 200,000 plus lifers in the United States. Do want to focus on juvenile lifers because that's a big point. I heard a lot about the sciences, and we all had the privilege of hearing, just another round of applause for everybody being here as well. We had the courage of, government officials coming out, prosecutors. We have senators, representatives who usually would just stick in the building. When I remember in 19, and now we'll talk about, justice and reform. They're actually coming out and, speaking out. So thank God for that. Give a round of applause for that for a moment. I want to talk about juvenile lifers again. In this great state of Michigan, 142 juvenile lifers were released. Only one had to return due to run-ins with the law. Only one. I'm not a mathematician, but I can tell you the numbers are pretty low. And the one who actually went back, that was considered a rare case. The reason why, talk about considering, juvenile lifers recidivism, repeat offenders, is actually extremely low. Extremely low. So when you do life and you have your life literally taken away from you, you learn very quick. It's something that triggers. And your time sitting in that cell, well, you're like, all right, I need to make a change. And when I come out, I'm not going to waste that opportunity that I was given, that God blessed me with. I'm going to put some work in. I'm going to put some work in. So when we talk about that number with recidivism, it's extremely low. Science has proven the mind isn't developed to roughly around 25 years of age. My father, he's been in since 17 years. So 17 years old, he's been in. And as we're doing this, I want to talk about a man today because we've been having Zoom meetings and emails and we've been texting and we've been meeting. And so I had the opportunity to sit down with an individual. I wrote a few things down. Faced 20 years in prison for possession and intent to deliver, drug dealing. Of course, we know what goes on in communities. Was kicked out of college, absolutely ruined that. Disgraced the church, but also, most importantly, disgraced the family. And so as I was speaking with this gentleman, we talked about, hey, how did you get past that? So he was given an opportunity, what's called HIDA, Homes Youth Trainee Act. So he was given an opportunity. And it was granted by the judge. I just want to take a moment and thank God for turning the heart of the king, right? Just turning the heart of the politicians, turning the heart to get the right things done. Later on, this gentleman, went ahead, got back into school. That gentleman went ahead and finished, got himself a career, started a family, had a couple of kids, started a business. You know, in fact, I'm privileged to say that man is here in the crowd right now. I have to raise my hand. That was me. I was that gentleman. I was that person that was blessed with that second look, that second chance. And I'm living proof of what you could do when you have that second look and that second chance. God is good all the time, and all the time God is good. And I thank God for the second look and the second chance. And so when I look back and I ask myself, we have ladies and gentlemen here, I mean, just support them, but we also have ladies and gentlemen that's out there locked up. And so Michigan is literally one of the last states. Let's talk about it. I was looking at the map, and especially when it comes to juvenile lifers, a lot of them just simply banned it because it's inhumane, and we all know that. But at this point, Michigan, stand up. We talked about change. It's time for us to stand up for what's right. We can't continue to be the blockbuster when it comes to the justice system. So I'll say all that to say this. We all know the saying, knowledge is power. And with great power comes great responsibility. When you know better, you have to do better. Let's make the next 34 years better than the last. That's all I have, family. I love you guys. Thank you for the support.
Another round of applause for the brother William Hawkins. And at this time, I want to bring up our co-MC to give our next introduction. This rain ain't gonna chase us away. We here. We here.
We appreciate y'all staying out here in the rain. I want to introduce to you all today the Executive Director of the Detroit Branch NAACP, which is the largest and boldest branch in the country. They have been a major opponent of the felony murder law and with pre-airing cases. Today I bring to you Miss Camila Landrum. Good afternoon, everybody. I heard Mama right here say, what do we want? Freedom. And when do we want it? Now. What do we want? Freedom. And when do we want it? Now. What do we want? Freedom. And when do we want it? Now. When the NAACP talks about race and justice, we're talking about the ways that discrimination, policing, prosecutions, and incarceration practices impact communities of color. Our criminal justice system is shaped by biased policing, unfair judicial precedents, rooted in anti-Blackness and racial disparity. The emotional, mental, physical, and financial impact on our communities is a tangible experience for millions of Black people in the U.S. The cost of an unjust system is high. And to reform our system, we must address the structural inequities that allow people with lower incomes to be penalized in ways that the wealthy are not. This systematically affects Black communities, Black families, those who continue to be over-policed, over-surveillanced, harshly sentenced, and sent to prison in lieu of just sometimes quality health care. We must pass legislation like Second Look to bring our mothers home, to bring our sisters home, to bring our brothers home, to bring our children home. Our brother stood here and talked about voting and why it is so important. It's important because you must elect those that care about your agenda to save our families. We cannot have legislators that stand out here one day and tell you they care about justice, and then the next day they privately vote and take away access to your family in your own community. It's not fair. It's not right. And we will not stand for it. Right now, maps are being drawn for redistricting to take away your right to vote, to unpack you and stack you in places where your voice will no longer matter. But we tell people right here, right now, and today, you cannot quiet a people that are roaring. You cannot quiet a people that are not afraid to speak. You cannot quiet a people that have been suppressed. We will rise. We will make sure our voices are heard. This legislation must be passed. It must be passed because we have to bring our leaders back to our communities to restore order. We need our families to be present and to be whole. We cannot go into the future being broken. Why do we bring our exonerees home? We welcome our doors at the NAACP because we have leaders like Brother Darrell Woods who came back home, who led the NAACP for 29 years inside of a prison branch to make sure that if your family could register to vote outside, they did. If they could select candidates outside to make sure that they cared about your agenda on the inside, they did. It's important for us to stand together. We know that as a community, united on this issue of bringing our families back together, standing against injustice, and making sure that the laws that are crafted by people that push our agenda and have our whole interests at heart. Our whole interests at heart is who we should have leading us. It is my pleasure, if I may, to bring our brother Darrell Woods to the stage. Right now, he's with Nation Outside, leading and fighting. He has Fighting the Good Fight to help young people. He's mentored young men, young women across this city, and I have personally seen his commitment to justice transform this nation. Brother Darrell Woods, it's my pleasure to bring you to the microphone at this time.
The days of retribution is over. I said the days of retribution is over. We are here on the state capitol, here to declare that mercy must take place in the state of Michigan. We are declaring today, right now, to let my people go. This hard-hearted approach to justice must end today. We are here to say that our brothers and sisters who are in the Michigan Department of Correction must be free today. We are saying that the men and brothers that is in the National Lifers Association, their lives matter. We are saying that the brothers and sisters that's in the NAACP, in the penal system, their lives matter. We are saying that those men and those women who have life without the possibility of parole, they deserve mercy and they deserve it today. We are here today to say that we are standing until justice flow down like a mighty water and justice be granted to these men and women today. We are sick and tired of being sick and tired to watch our brothers and sisters die in prisons after they serve 40 and 30 and 50 years in prison. We are tired of that. And we declared to the House of Representatives, we are declaring to the Senate, we are declaring to the governor's office that we are not going nowhere. We ain't going nowhere. If we got to come here every week, if we got to come here every month, we will not be silent. I served 28 years and 11 months in a prison. I had to sleep on a steel bunk. I had to sit on a steel toilet. I was condemned to life without the possibility of parole. But as you heard my executive director say today, I'm out here mentoring young people. But I'm not the only one. I got brothers and sisters in this audience right now who have been transformed and are in bringing healing and deliverance in this city and in this state and in this nation. So I'm going to ask my brothers and sisters, if you have been incarcerated before, if you had a life sentence before, if you had an indeterminate amount of sentence before, I want you to step to these steps right quick. This is what transformation looks like. This is what transformation looks like. This is what transformation looks like. We are the nation outside. We are Michigan Liberation. We are the National Organization of Exonerees. We are that. And we are voters too. I said we are voters too. And we're going to declare today that our people that's incarcerated, that they will be free one day. We speak on the behalf of all those brothers and sisters on the inside. We have not forgotten our brothers and sisters. Much love. Look at this. This is transformation. You got people who are CEOs of their own businesses. You got organizational leaders. You have people working with the young people. You have nothing but transformation on these steps. And we're waiting on our brothers and sisters to join us so that we can help bring healing in our state and in our cities, in our communities. Much love.
Strong round of applause for Camelia Lansing and Daryl Wood. At this time, I want to bring up a group of women who are formerly incarcerated, and also the daughter of a woman who is currently incarcerated, Wanda Hollister, and the Emporia Starks. Give them a round of applause, y'all.
I done stood in the rain for 34 years waiting on somebody to bring me a noodle to the yard. I know I can stand in the rain for this. I don't want to be too long. I went to prison. I committed a crime at the age of 17. I was released at 52 with no skills, just dropped here in society. I've had a very strong support system and has helped me get myself together, and I'm moving forward. The man earlier said, let me make sure, I can't remember what it was, but he was one of our senators or somebody. He said they age out of crime.
That's right.
At the moment he said it, it was profound. They aged out of crime. And I'm like, yeah, they aged out of crime. Why must they age out of crime? Why must they age out? Do y'all hear what that's saying? That's saying that they've been in prison 30 or 40 years.
That's right. That's right.
That is too long. That is too long for someone to be in prison. Yes, a crime was committed. Yes, a crime was committed. You have to pay for that. But I am an offender, and I know that you change. You do things differently. You get better, and you move forward. I have aged out of crime, but I have also aged out of a lot of other things. And I don't feel that that is necessary for the 13,000, 14,000 people that are in prison. That is unnecessary. I am blessed to have had a second chance. And I'm not taking it lightly. I don't want no problems with the state or the feds.
All right.
I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
That's right.
However, it's about moving forward. It's about the second chance. And I feel like there are plenty of people in prison that deserve that second chance. Not just saying, you know, that criminal, they can do that stupid stuff, they can give the crime, do the time. Come on now. We all have made mistakes. Some of us is costly. I'm not trying to make light of that. I'm not. I'm still praying for my victims. I'm still praying for my victims. They were wrong. And I have an agreement with them to move forward. To move forward. They have told me, let it go. Live your life. Stop holding on to the bones of 34 years ago. I've been given that second chance. And there are others who deserve that second chance.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Hi, my name is Linda Sturmer. I'm still inmate number 757152 because the state wrongfully convicted me and has decided to retry me. I'm not here to talk about me. I'm here to talk about people like Rwanda.
That's right.
People like Kimberly. People like Jenny Jones. People like Jessica. And all the countless people who are still inside doing these long sentences. Tamara.
Yeah.
And Cole. So many of us. Tanisha. Tashina.
Yeah.
Loretta. April. So many people whose names you'll see on these posters.
Susan Brown.
These people inside the reason people come out and become a success, like Rwanda, like Kimberly, is because they've developed a community inside those prison walls to help each other, to help rehabilitate the people that the state warehoused and gave up on. The state of Michigan warehouses, they do not rehabilitate. You go in those walls, no matter what your sentence is, you are not going to receive any programming until you are 2 years from that door, if that. Sometimes they won't even get you into programming until you are 6 months from the door, and you need 9 months programming. You are going to stay longer until you get that programming done that they denied you. If you are in a program early, and someone has a sooner date that comes in, they're going to bounce you out of that class. They're going to put somebody who has less time in your place, and they're going to tell you, stay. Stay until it's your turn. But these people develop a community inside. They become electricians. They become porters. They become groundskeepers. They become mothers inside to other people. Fathers, brothers, sisters. And they help you the minute you walk in the door, and they embrace you and say, let me show you the way. Because you're going to get out, and you need to know certain things. They may not give you the education there that you need, but the community support that you receive in there is better than anything you will receive out here in the world. Why? Because they know they need to rehabilitate themselves, and they care. These people take care of every aspect. If you are sick, even if you are dying inside the prison, it's not healthcare who's going to take care of you. It is your sisters and your brothers who will come and take you to the toilet, take you to the shower. They will nurse your wounds. They will help you to med lines. They will stand out in the rain and the snow with you until you've gotten what you need. And that's because they have developed so much compassion for each other. A large percentage of these people inside the prisons can't come home. Why keep them longer in order to deteriorate them so far that they cannot provide for themselves when they come out? We feel like a burden on society when we come out because we have nothing. We have been stripped of everything, and maybe that's rightly so. But we need lesser sentences so that we can come out productive citizens who can give back to the communities we will be coming home to. Second chances is what's needed. We need to prepare our people inside of the prison walls, and we need to give them something to look forward to. We need incentives. We need to prepare to come home. Thank you.
To be rich is not what you have in your bank account, but what you have in your heart. My name is Emporia Starks. At this time, if I could have all the youth represented here today, all of the children of incarcerated parents, if you could come forward and join me here on the steps today. We want to stand with you. My name is Emporia. I'm here. My mother was incarcerated at the age of 11, so I know what these children have been through. I want to stand here with them, and we want to cover their prayer too. At some point, I want maybe Mr. Woods to go and say a word for them to play out. If we could have all of the children of the incarcerated come on forward. I know it's hard, y'all, but we gonna make it. We are here.
That's right. That's right.
Amen. Amen. We'll give those children up. Could you all give them a hand, y'all? That's all I'm talking up here. These kids are kids, and so it's a little different. So give them a hand as they come forward. Really quickly, I won't be before you long. I'd like to take the time out, one, to give God all the honor and praise for being here at this moment. And then two, I'd like to take a moment and to thank Girl Woods for having me and my sister here and connecting us to such great organizations like this. We appreciate you. Thank you. My name is Emporia Starks. My mother is serving a life sentence. She went to prison when I was 11 years old. I'm 30 plus now. She's been in prison 27 years. I'm a community youth leader in the city of Detroit. I'm a former educator in the city and urban communities because I know their needs. I've been through it. It wasn't easy growing up. The impact of a prisoner is hard, especially when it's your mother, when it's a parent. Yeah. It's rough. And if it's your father, I don't want to speak for mothers, but fathers also too. Yeah. That's rough. My mother's case was on the news, so they laughed and they talked about me, like, those types of things. It was a major big thing. And my mother was just in a situation. She didn't commit a crime, she was just there. Come on, we need some changes. It's time. Today is the day. Listen, I want to introduce my sister, the person that's here responsible for not letting me fail. Her name is Juvenile. Would you go forward?
All right.
You might cry, so forgive me.
And this is the hardest thing in my life. I don't want to leave. And I hate that it happened because
Be strong, mama.
my mother didn't commit. She was there. And I feel for y'all because I understand what it is to be out there here. But be strong. Believe in God. Please believe in God. Please, y'all all got a chance. You got a chance to be something. Do not let that slip. Do not fail. Please. That's what the enemy wants. That's what Satan Michigan wants. They want to see us fail. But we are here to let you know that we got y'all in. And we are not, under no circumstances, going to let y'all fail. We are not going to let y'all fail. So what I want y'all to do is...
Yeah, I need to get in here, man.
My Facebook, my Instagram, anything, I'm here. I'm here. I'm only one person. But believe me,
I only need 5 minutes.
I got
That's
some
all I need.
and y'all got some too.
Yeah, how did everybody? They said they're gonna get me in there. They can try to. They said they're running out of time.
Please give another round of applause for Rhonda Hollister, Mrs. Turner, Emporia Starks. At this time, I'd like to bring up who was originally going to be our keynote speaker. But of course, because of the weather, we definitely want to make sure that she gets in now. So at this time, I would love to introduce Ingham County Prosecuting Attorney, Carol Seaman.
Shorter than
Can you hear me? So, I first of all want to say I've heard some of the names that I'm familiar with here today. I heard about Freddie Nash. I'm so glad to hear that he's healthy at Empire. He's a king. I heard Freddie Nash. Family from Freddie Nash. Okay. Pretty Elise Brown's mom, who I met almost 6 years ago, and we're still looking at it.
He's doing a lot inside of prison.
And your son writes to me very regularly and reminds me.
As he should.
As he should.
As he should.
And so now I apparently have misplaced some of my notes already. Because I can see my kid, oh yeah, it's sopping wet. So I had to write down things because I really want to say a lot of different things. And one thing that's not my... Okay. One thing that's not in my script, but just this morning I was on a national Fight Crimes, Invest in Kids with Carl Racine, the Attorney General of Washington, and others, focusing on what we need to do with the earliest ages of children so that we don't have all the damage, not just the people incarcerated and the children of people who have to grow up with their parents in prison, but all the ripple effects in our society. And so it ties in, everything ties in, and our hands are tied sometimes, but this is where we start to undo those knots. And today is especially timely to be here at the Capitol about this subject. I don't know if anyone's mentioned this, but today is Teach Truth Day of Action Day in honor and memory of George Floyd's birthday, which is today. I've been a lawyer for 40 years, and I was an assistant prosecutor in the 1980s and 1990s when we were really focused on that get tough on crime, do the time, home prisons, and all that crap. And the mass incarceration that was driven by good people, including many community leaders of color, because we were afraid of the violence. We'll talk about that in a bit. But in Michigan and in Lansing, we're seeing positive results of working towards ending mass incarceration while keeping our community safe. Those are not inconsistent. Statewide, we've had a 35% drop in prison population over the last 15 years. Natalie, and I don't know where she is, but she'll tell us it's not enough, and it's not. But before the COVID pandemic, we saw there was a 26% drop in the prison population at the same time that the crime rate is still dropping in Michigan. In Ingham County, we've had a 37% decline in our state prison commitments over the past 4 years since I've been in office. Prior to COVID, we saw a stable crime rate, even as we were making substantial changes to see who came into the system and how they progressed through the system. Whenever prosecutors support reforms to the criminal legal system, there's an outcry and dire warnings that the crime rate will go up due to these reforms. But research in places as diverse as Boston, Massachusetts, Baltimore, Maryland, and Stanford University in California have supported that prosecutorial reforms do not lead to a spike in crime. And of course, during the pandemic, for a multitude of reasons, violent crime has gone up most places nationwide. We've seen that in our communities, including right here. But there's no discernible link to increased crime in places with reform-minded leaders and in places with traditional law and order leaders. The risk, and we're already seeing this, is that the legitimate concern about rise in gun violence and homicides will frighten people so much that they'll seek a return to the harsh, punitive arrest, prosecution, and sentencing practices that led to mass incarceration, excessively long sentences, and huge racial disparities in who occupies our jails and prisons. In the middle of this continuing pandemic and the continued response to the George Floyd murder and everything that came specifically out of that, and the backlash against police reform recently, there's clearly more work to be done. Statistics show that Michigan incarcerates more people and for longer than our population numbers would explain. The state's prison population has dropped due to alternative sentences, a drop in the crime rate, and an increase in reentry and parole releases. But we still have a prison population that is disproportionately black, and we also have far too many people serving extreme sentences, including life without the possibility of parole, often for offenses they committed as teenagers and young adults. In our county, we work for alternatives to life without parole sentences, so the serious violent offenders, people who did indeed commit a murder, will serve a defined term of years at the minimum before they're eligible for review by the parole board. In other words, while not everyone will achieve parole, it should be a reasonable expectation.
Before they get up there, now that they gotta serve 54 years.
75 years before they can proceed.
I agree. We're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about that. It should be we can all agree though, it should be a reasonable expectation that each person should have a meaningful opportunity to have their sentence reviewed during their incarceration to see who they are at this point in time and they can be safely released to the community.
You don't want people to tell us what we want to hear. We want something down.
We're going to get done by being here today, and you speaking to us about what's going to happen after this.
These are only stopgap measures, though. I am one of Michigan's 83 prosecutors, and in my county, where it's the only place I have real power, I have changed policy impact on current cases and have very limited jurisdiction. Talk about our hands being tied over matters that were previously resolved. We need statewide reforms through legislation, which is what everyone is asking for today, and I agree. To provide our system with a meaningful review process to review past offenses and work towards incarcerated persons gaining re-entry into the community when appropriate. And we've talked about this. You all have real people who you're thinking about here today who've been so negatively impacted by the excessively harsh and punitive sentencing practices in the United States. And we know that these are worse than other countries, that the United States incarcerates 25% of the whole world's population of incarcerated people. 40% of the world's life without parole sentences.
A person going in at 21 gotta serve 54 years before they see the parole board. They're dead.
Nationally, about 200,000. I would love to talk with you, but right now I'm really trying to make you. Thank you. Right now in the United States, there are 200,000 and 300,000 people serving life without parole sentences. 203,000 people is more than the entire national population of incarcerated persons in 1970, and that's just a person serving life without parole. So we've heard a little bit about how there are different efforts to create conviction integrity units, innocence projects, and do cases that review actual innocence, and we've had people speak here. I applaud those. Many persons who left prison as exonerees have become active proponents from the nation outside, from the National Association of Exonerees, but there's much more to do. I think of a local man from Jackson who is here today, who sadly is still on parole about 15 years after his release from another state's prison because his record was never actually cleared. There's much to be done in that particular area. But as we heard from Rwanda, there are many who I candidly admit that they did commit the crime for which they are incarcerated, but ask for a second chance, to simply have an opportunity to have their sentence and who they are at this point in time reviewed by the parole board or other body for possible reentry into society. In 1978, in Michigan, right here in Ingham County, a man was sentenced for a homicide that he committed one day after his 18th birthday. He is now 63 and has been in prison for 45 years over this teenage offense. If he'd been born 2 days earlier, he would have been eligible for resentencing years ago under the 2002 Miller United States Supreme Court case of juvenile life without parole. As I did with my other juvenile life without parole cases, I would have supported resentencing for this man instead of asking him to be resentenced for a life without a possibility of parole. He likely would have been released 4 years ago, but there's no mechanism for me to review his case. So instead, he's set to spend the rest of his life behind bars, even at the age of 63. So seeing these inequities, we began a pilot project. support commutation. Now, prosecutors don't have the authority in Michigan to file for commutation. We can just support someone else's efforts. And we know that we need something much more powerful. We'll get to that. But I began where I was, the life without parole review process 2 years ago when 2 volunteer retired attorneys, assisting, because I have no money to do this, due to our own staff shortages, the pandemic and other factors, this has been a slow process. But it's the first step to create an interim process until our law and our legal system catches up. Our volunteer attorneys have reviewed a number of cases. Right now, we're supportive of possible commutation of 5 men of 7 reviewed to that. Each were sentenced to life without the possibility of parole many years ago. One individual is 86 years old, and his likelihood of seeing the sky as a free man decreases each day. 2 commutation requests that have been filed that we support. But there certainly is no guarantee that the Michigan Parole Board will agree to take this to the next step. And certainly if they did recommend it to the governor, there's no guarantee that the governor will do the commutation. So the commutation process is not our answer. It's just what we have right now. So my original project grew out of the juvenile life without parole resentencing process, as I recognize that all people, not just those who are juveniles when they commit their crime, deserve a second look. And I quickly became aware that in addition to providing a review process for those sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, it's also critical to look at people who are not sentenced to life without parole, but have very long sentences, as we refer to, are in essence, they're virtual, life without parole, even if they're not called that. An example of the arbitrariness of this system is a local teen who was sentenced to a very long term of years for second-degree murder about a number of years ago. While that sentence arguably gave him a chance to be paroled, the irony is that if he had actually been convicted as a juvenile life without parole for first-degree murder, he would have been eligible for resentencing and could have supported his resentencing. With a sentence of a term of years, that's just not a legal tool that's available. That's a real discrepancy in our legal system. So he continues to sit in prison with no clear, defined means for a review of that sentence. Another person for whom we will support a commutation review was sentenced under extremely old, archaic, draconian drug laws. Wow. Right? His minimum sentence is in the neighborhood of 70 years. Clearly, many more years than his sentence would have been today if he were sentenced in 2021 for the same crimes. Unlike some states like California, Washington, and Oregon, Michigan simply has no law or legal framework other than the very tedious commutation process to review old sentences to assess if they're considered fair today. I participated in a network of reform-minded prosecutors throughout the nation. One of them, Ellie Sapp, is here today from Washington County, and he's Chief of Victoria. Great guy. And there are actually many of us. We now represent about 75 million people in the United States as our constituents who are trying to lead the way for fairness and justice. Every state is so different, though. But just recently in California, the District Attorney Diana Becton in Contra Costa County, California, where the road trips are off the tongue, secured the sentencing and release of 2 individuals with excessively long sentences in her county, since continued incarceration was no longer in the interest of justice. She could do this because California now allows district attorneys, prosecutors, to seek resentencing, a power we do not have here in Michigan. I certainly hope that a similar law will be adopted in Michigan. But, you know, it's going to take a lot of work, and it's not something that's being widely supported right now, so, you know, please do bring support to that idea. The governor's commutation authority is the only possible remedy that currently exists outside of the appellate process, which you know is also a lengthy and frustrating process. The governor's commutation authority is an important part of our laws, but never designed to provide a comprehensive review process for the thousands of inmates with extremely long sentences, including life without the possibility of parole. In Michigan, we've had bipartisan support for criminal justice reforms, especially related to sentencing changes. as well as clean slate expungement legislation and other measures recommended by the Governor's Task Force on jail and pretrial detention and signed into law after being passed by our legislature. We've seen that criminal justice reform is a multifaceted process and that it takes an ongoing effort to make substantial changes to the system. Each piece is important, but it really is a piecemeal process, and what our criminal law looks like and our ability for second chance reviews and other needed reforms is still just little pieces here and there. Right now, and at every level, what we've seen is the system's always had racially disproportionate outcomes. They used to say that when America gets a cold, Black America gets pneumonia. Right now, we're in the middle of a health pandemic that has hit persons of color with laser precision because it's laid bare the inequities in healthcare, housing, and the workforce. These are all connected. Let's never pretend that they're not. So the healthcare analogy is sadly relevant. There is institutional racism in healthcare, housing, education, and the financial sector. And nowhere is it more pronounced than in the criminal legal system, where even after years of sentencing reforms, 12% of the population that's Black in my county, this county, accounts for 40% of those with criminal charges. Where the state population is majority Black, despite our statewide Black population accounting for about 1 in 7 persons. There's an ongoing movement to change how our police, prosecutors, judges, and the entire criminal legal system have an impact on the people of the United States, especially those of color. Unfortunately, that movement has grown in strength because of what we've seen with our own eyes in the last couple of years. The deaths of Americans like George Floyd, Eric Garner, and Philando Castile. Just as previous generations watched not only the horrors of Bloody Sunday in Selma, Alabama, but also the courage of those who stood up to advocate for justice, today we once again have a movement that's led by the young and the families of those who are most impacted by these old, archaic laws. This movement has Black America front and center and is working to take the movement that we've seen in the streets, in the marches, and in organized efforts to bring about change by seeking the truth, to bring sustainable changes and reforms into our courthouses and prosecutors' offices, into the police departments and all the institutions we claim to serve. We the people. The energy that was generated in 2020 needs to continue to be harnessed to effectively work for reform in our criminal legal system. Right now, we're seeing that all too many Americans have seemingly lost interest, and the great optimism that followed these great injustices, the energy seems to have drained away for many to do anything. We can't, and I'm so glad to see the passion here today. Today, the we the people means more than it did at our nation's founding. I believe that we the people means that every person in this country deserves to be heard, to be recognized, and that people shouldn't die alone in their prison cell over a crime they committed as a much younger person, just because nobody would give them a second chance. And as Brian Stevenson said, each of us is more than the worst thing we have ever done. Let's keep that energy harnessed and work together for continued legal system reform, including meaningful second chance reviews here in Michigan and elsewhere. Thank you.
Everyone, give me one more time for Ingham County Prosecutor. Again, she is one of the most progressive prosecutors we have here in Michigan, alongside with Ellie Savage in Washington County and Karen McDonald in Oakland County. Without these elected officials, we will not be making change in the criminal justice arena. And again, no mercy, no vote, right? So I would have the great honor of introducing Rick Spector as with Safe and Just Michigan. He is also a formerly incarcerated individual and is also a part of the community engagement program with Safe and Just. Come on up, Rick.
You're stonewalling him on these grand jury transcripts. Please, you need to get with him. Please, do the right thing. Okay.
Good afternoon.
You have all the power to do what you need to do. No, I thought we came here to
I'm not really here today as a community engagement
John's being
specialist for
silenced, I'm
Safe
not
and
going to
Just
be silenced,
Michigan.
bro.
I'm not here today as a formerly incarcerated man who served 18 and a half years in both state and federal prisons.
I stand before you today, a man that lost his oldest daughter to gun violence 2.5 years ago. She was murdered. And I'm going to take you through a little progression of what that was like for me as a father who was basically absent for most of her life due to my incarceration. You know, I was blessed to have some time, some years with her before she was taken. And when she was, she left a son behind at the age of 6 who had just celebrated his birthday. And like many people, I wanted vengeance. I wanted Old Testament justice. I wanted eye for an eye. And when that passed, I wanted what most people want, what they feel is going to make them better. I wanted that person to do forever. And at the time, I was a community organizer for the ACLU of Michigan Smart Justice Campaign, and it gave me pause. Did I want to continue in this career? Because could I do it wholeheartedly? And I had to take some time off of work to reflect on that, because I wanted to do it where I've been doing it from, and that was my heart. And then, during the darkest time that I went through, when I wanted that vengeance, when I wanted what I thought was going to make me feel better for somebody to hurt, I heard. It was a man that served 19.5 years from the age of 16 in prison, who happens to be one of my best friends. It was there for me to say, Rick, you don't want to do this. You don't want to go down that path. Look where you're at, look where you came from. But I still had that bitterness. I lost my baby. But here's the reality. During that 18 years of incarceration, I was around a lot of men that were redeemable and redeemed themselves and transformed the way these speakers have been talking about transformation. Many of these people I consider to be my family, my loved ones, people that are here today throughout this crowd and up here sharing this with me. Folks that reached out to me and showed me love in my darkest time. And because those same folks are the folks that we're here to talk about today, that if not for a second chance, they wouldn't have been here to be here for me, for my family. And so, over this 2.5 years, I know that life without the possibility of parole is not the answer. I know that everybody, just like myself, has redeeming qualities about them. So I've suffered the greatest loss any parent, any person in my opinion can suffer. And I stand here today still saying that we need to support second look legislation, that we need to pass second look legislation. Because every person that has committed those crimes is redeemable. And yes, they are less than 1%. They do not recidivize. Yes, they are in these communities stopping violence. The same folks that were there creating the havoc are now there to be the answer for what they created. And who better to learn from than somebody that's been there? You know, a lot didn't matter to me in that time. My reality was I'm here today because I had other children and grandchildren. And I'm going to be celebrating the birth of my third grandson here probably any day now, the next week. Right? And so I'm here today because I didn't just get a second chance. Unfortunately, I served 3 bids, so I got, plenty of chances. And I've been home 7 years, and I like to believe that I've given more to the community than I've taken. And I know that the folks that will follow behind this legislation, this second look, will also be an asset to the community. Thank you. Reach out to your legislators. Let's get this done.
Another round for Rick Speck, please. At this time, we will hear from 2 brothers who are currently incarcerated who are also involved with the National Lifers of America Incorporated. I think one is a recording and the other will be calling in live. Then we had a recording queued up for Carlton Banks. Carlton Banks, y'all.
To all of you who came to stand with us and support our cause for true criminal justice reform policies. My name is Carlton Banks. I am the National Lifers of America Incorporated